I love puzzle games. There's quite a few puzzle game related videos on my channel and it's always a joy to cover more, especially those that don't get enough attention. The game in question today is a spin on the Mario IP, but doesn't have many fans. So does that mean it's bad or forgettable? Far from it. In fact, this might be my favorite puzzle outing from the Big N, but for some reason it just doesn't get discussed as much as games like Dr. Mario, Panel de Pon, or their several Picross games. Yep, this game is none other than Yoshi's Cookie. Although it's been seemingly retired, the gameplay still holds up. This game holds a very special place in my heart as it was one of the first ever retro games I've bought. This Super Nintendo cartridge was one of the games I purchased alongside the Superboy for my 9th birthday, and I've been repelling the bitches ever since. But this isn't the first iteration of Yoshi's Cookie. For that, we'll have to turn it back here and look at the NES. In Japan, Yoshi no Cookie was released for the Famicom in November of 1992. For North America, this game was released in November of the following year, 5 months after the SNES version. For chronological sake, we're gonna look at the NES version first. Nintendo didn't develop this game. This is one of those several Tosei-developed, Nintendo-published games. Wait, right there it says licensed by Bulletproof Software. But they didn't even design this game. So who the hell even made Yoshi's Cookie? Highly obscure Japanese developer Home Data, later known as Magical Company, designed an arcade game called Hermetica. It failed location testing, so it went unreleased, and Home Data sold it to Bulletproof Software. They renamed this general design concept to Inaro, and here's an archived video of it which used to be on their website. A Super Nintendo version was produced to show at CES 1992, and Nintendo purchased the rights to develop 8-bit versions featuring their own characters. Oh, and Alexei Pajitnov designed the puzzles for this game. You could say there were quite a few hands in the cookie jar. Okay, so now that you're up to speed on this game's surprisingly intricate history, it's time to see what Yoshi's Cookie has to offer. It's a matching puzzle game where you make rows of the same type of cookie. There's 5 different cookies and a Yoshi cookie which is compatible with everything. When selecting a cookie with the cursor, pressing a direction on the D-pad shifts the rows around. In action mode, the goal is to clear out the cookies and move to the next level. Like many puzzle games of the time, lining up combos adds a point multiplier. With this being all Mario themed, the presentation is nice. For a late NES puzzle game, it does about everything it has to. It has good graphics and music. In between rounds, there are these little cutscenes depicting Mario and Yoshi running around chasing cookies, participating in a bit of comic mischief. Something about this gameplay just clicks with me. In later rounds, it requires some insane reactions and on-the-spot thinking, but will always manage to be relaxing. Setting up combos is so simple. It makes clearing out a massive board in a few quick moves rewarding and a fun thing to pull off. I can space out and play Yoshi's Cookie and not have to think about anything else in the world except lining up baked goods. I beat the 10 rounds in about 2 hours, and I have to admit I used some continues here and there, but the game gives you infinite continues, so you have the option to either go for that high score or blast through the game stress-free. Yoshi's Cookie is one of my favorite puzzle games for these different types of playstyles. I can come to it for an adrenaline rush or something to wind down to. Everything about this game is pleasant. You can figure out how to play it in a second and you'll feel yourself getting better at it every time you return. If you can clear round 10, the credit sequence will roll featuring the all-star cast, a terrifying glowing eyes Mario, all of the cookies, and the cursor. Glad they didn't forget about him, he's the real MVP. One more thing, there's a little secret you can unlock. On the single player selection menu, set the speed to high, turn the music off, and the round to 10, press up and select on the controller, and boom, you've unlocked levels 11 through 99. In these stages, the cookies are replaced by Mario enemies similar to the original Yoshi puzzle game, a neat callback to an inferior game. There's also a versus mode. Prior to this video, I've never played multiplayer Yoshi's Cookie, so I was surprised to see how the gameplay differs. Yes, I couldn't get anyone to play Yoshi's Cookie with me before this. Shocker, I know. In multiplayer, there aren't the constant falling batches of cookies, and instead, it's a single filled board that regenerates once a row is cleared. If you like the intensity of the harder levels in single player, you'll love multiplayer. This is one of the fastest, highest energy multiplayer puzzle games I've played. You and a buddy race to fill the bar on the left, all while a timer counts down your time to clear a row, and also one of several random effects will happen to an opponent, causing the other to steal a game. All these combine to make a game with an insane amount of pressure and extreme focus. Versus mode is just awesome, and might even be more fun than single player. Depends on what kind of mood you're in, but as a big fan of this game, I had a blast finally being able to play this. About a month later, a port for the Game Boy dropped. It's nearly one-to-one with the NES version. There are a few minor differences, including the gameplay being slowed down a bit and the music adapted for the Game Boy sound chip. Both Mario and Yoshi are on the side controlling the levers like in the Super Nintendo game. The secret additional levels also made it over, which is pretty cool. Aside from those changes, not much else can be said about the Game Boy port that I didn't already say in the NES review. Puzzle games are awesome on portable consoles, so this one is no exception. The enhanced Super Nintendo port was released in the summer of '93, and is the version I'm most familiar with. It was developed by Bulletproof, and they retain partial rights to it, meaning that this will likely never be re-released. While comparing both ports for this retrospective, I'm realizing this might not be the worst thing. I had been under the assumption that this port was better than the NES version. Why? Well, it's the Super Nintendo, of course it's better. It has twice the bit. Don't get me wrong, aesthetically it triumphs over the NES. Super bright and colorful 16-bit sprite art and music that's aided by a superior sound chip, but the gameplay happens to be slightly slower. This is perhaps one of the most minor nitpicks in my reviewing career, but for a puzzle game, it's an important thing to mention. Super Nintendo Yoshi's Cookie does have an extra mode absent from the NES. Puzzle mode. You have a limited amount of moves to clear a board. It's not my favorite, I prefer the standard mode by a wide margin, but I'm sure this is someone's jam. Both 8-bit and 16-bit versions of this game are great. While I do have a soft spot for the SNES version, I have to give the NES port a slight edge in gameplay. To be honest, it doesn't matter which version of Yoshi's Cookie you decide to play. They're all similar enough to where it just comes down to console preference. Those were all three classic versions of Yoshi's Cookie. They're the most known and obtainable. But now it's time to dive into the obscure. The Yoshi's Cookie series goes deeper than this. The Super Famicom received a special limited edition release of Yoshi's Cookie. Yoshi no Cookie Kurupon Oven Day Cookie was released to promote a line of ovens in 1994. There were only 500 copies of this game given away, so you'd bet it's expensive as shit. So what do you get for your 900 hard-earned smackaroos? Well, the menu has you pick between either regular Yoshi's Cookie or this little adventure mode where you get to learn all about how to bake cookies in the real world with your very own National Human Electronics Kurupon oven. This is one of those cool Nintendo history things. It's so strange to see a SNES game with an oven advertisement, but hey, Yoshi's Cookie is the perfect game to do so with. If the recipes were in English, honestly I'd make one of them, but what do you know, a game for the Japanese market is in Japanese. Should you play the Yoshi Oven game in 2022? I don't know. There's no reason to, but there's also no reason not to. If one of you can actually translate the recipes for this game, please leave a comment and I will personally make a baking video on this channel just for you. Move over, Yoshi, because the next Yoshi's Cookie game has not a single Yoshi in sight. Here's Hello Kitty No Beads Kubu, released in 1999 for the Game Boy Color. Sanrio licensed the Yoshi's Cookie gameplay to make this title. Look, there's the 1992 Nintendo copyright on the title screen. I did not expect this game to have as much polish as it does. The graphics and menus are colorful and clean, and it seems like there's a lot of content to dig into here. Obviously, it's hard for me to discern what exactly I'm clicking on, but I found and played what I think is a story mode, versus modes, unlockables, and I read online there's even Game Boy printer functionality. Gameplay-wise? Yep. That's a Yoshi's Cookie. It's more reminiscent of the versus mode, but in single player. The play area is filled and replenishes when you clear lines. This version of the game cuts down on the challenge and intensity. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because with this game you can just de-stress and enjoy the cute visuals and unlockables. Personally, I'm gonna stick with the standard Yoshi's Cookie, but I can totally see a Hello Kitty fan picking up this game and having a fun and relaxing time with it. So if you're a Sanrio head with a Game Boy Color, you can't go wrong with this game. Don't worry, the final Yoshi's Cookie game does indeed have Yoshi. It was included on none other than the Nintendo Puzzle Collection. This is a neat little Japanese exclusive GameCube game. In addition to Yoshi's Cookie, you also get Dr. Mario and Panel de Pon. Included in the full set is a Game Boy Advance link cable for use in sending the 3 puzzle games to your GBA. Yoshi's Cookie and Dr. Mario are just the NES versions, but Panel de Pon takes full advantage of the Game Boy Advance. This is an awesome, relatively inexpensive import all of you should add to your collections. You can boot Japanese GameCube games just fine with an action replay disc. Anyways, does the GameCube bring a whole new modern take on Yoshi's Cookie? Not really. This is essentially a remake of the SNES port. I'm pretty sure they just built this off the source code of it because man, so much is similar here. All I have to do is just show you both side by side and you can see what I mean. So what's changed? Of course the graphics have. I appreciate the watercolor styling. Music is new? Kinda? They're the same songs from the original, but in a sound font more aligned with the Mario games at the time. The one new mode added here is 4-player versus battle. Literally the same thing as the original versus mode, but with 2 more players. I'm struggling for things to talk about here because, well, I reviewed the exact same game a few minutes ago. It is by no means a bad thing Nintendo chose to remake the SNES game for this compilation. The gameplay is timeless, and a graphic overhaul is all that needs to be done. Compared to the other games in the compilation, it might be lacking, but one of those other games is an original Panel Day Pawn title, so that makes up for any possible flaw the Nintendo Puzzle Collection could have. This is, yet again, a great version of the same great game. And that was the entire Yoshi's Cookie series. If there's one thing you can call it, it's consistent. I can't say there's a definitive version. All have the same core gameplay and come with their own strengths and weaknesses. I encourage you to find a version that appeals to you most from this video and give it a shot. Whether you want the NES original, SNES port with the puzzle mode, Game Boy on the go, Game Boy Color if you're Yoshi-phobic, or GameCube for multiplayer and bonus GBA game, there is no wrong way to Yoshi a cookie. So give this overlooked puzzle game a shot and it just might click with you. I can keep coming back to this gameplay for intense cookie action, or just to unwind. It's a game that I adore that more of you should play.
I think Panel de Pawn is better.
Cyber Troopers,